If you're from our neck of the woods, chances are you've visited Bowling Green before. Maybe you've come here to shop at the mall or eat at one of the many fine restaurants. But did you know Bowling Green is home to Riverview at Hobson Grove? It's almost like you're stepping back in time. The Riverview at Hobson Grove Mansion majestically sits on this Bowling Green hillside. It's been here for more than 150 years.
The house was actually begun in 1857. The property, the 400 acres that the house initially was situated on, was acquired some years earlier than that, but the house itself was begun in 1857. It was not, however, completed until 1872. Those intervening years were, of course, during the time of the Civil War. So the house before the Civil War, actually before the Confederate troops marched into Bowling Green, was completed about a third of the way up. And Atwood Hobson, who started the house and owned the property, was a Union sympathizer, and he was also the bank president. And when the Confederate troops marched into Bowling Green, he took the money from the bank and went to Louisville. And he was very concerned about this house, and so he sent a slave servant back through the lines to talk to the occupying general, General Buckner, and asked him to spare this house. And the way General Buckner, who was an old family friend, agreed to do that was that he put timbers across the foundation and turned it into a munitions storage. And it was that way during the time that the Confederate troops were in Bowling Green, which was only from the fall of 1861 until the spring of 1862. After that, it was, of course, in Union hands, and the house continued to sit here until after the war was completed, and then again the house was completed in 1872. Not exactly as they had planned, because much of the ironwork that you see on the house today, iron after the war was hard to get if you could find it, and was exorbitantly expensive. So the ironwork was not added until much later, but the house was completed and occupied in 1872.
Laura Southard is the executive director here. She says Atwood Hobson and his family lived here for many years. However, she says it's a miracle the home is still standing today.
He lived here until he passed away. He and his wife both died while occupying this house, and then the house stayed in the hands of family until 1950. And then after the last occupying Hobson, George, went into a nursing home that went to his daughter and her husband, and they tried to do some repairs. It got too expensive. They tried to sell the house. Couldn't find any buyers. They ended up trading it for a service station in Franklin, Kentucky. And the man really wanted the acreage, not the house. He tried to give it to a niece as a wedding present. She was not interested, and so he ended up putting tenant farmers in this house. So the house was really occupied by tenants, 5 successive families of tenants from about 1956 until the 1960s. And by that time there had been some fires, and the house was in very disreputable and had been vandalized, and the city acquired the remaining 200 acres for the park area that you see here, and they condemned the house and were going to tear it down.
But at that point, some local residents stepped in to make sure this old home would not be demolished.
The city had posted a condemnation notice on the front door of the house, and there were 8 ladies, and every community has them, the stalwarts of the community, and they were having lunch at Bowling Green Country Club, and they got to discussing this house. Many of them had at least social ties, and some of them family ties to the house, and they decided they could not allow this house to be torn down. So they formed the first Hobson House Association, began to secure grants, William Natcher, of course, being very helpful to that, being on the Senate House Appropriations Committee, and he got a grant from Housing and Urban Development, and then other money was raised locally, and so the house was actually renovated in late 1960 to 1972, and then opened to the public in 1972. So it's been in continuous operation as a public house museum since 1972.
Southard says the Hobsons always entertained their most distinguished guests in the front parlor. This room still features some of the original furniture, including this antique piano. Perhaps the most stunning part of the room is the hand-painted ceiling.
The furnishings are about 40% original furnishings. And we're beginning to get more of those back all the time. However, all the furniture that you see in the house does date to the 1890 to 1910 period, so it is all accurate. My favorite thing about the house, I guess, is just that it's furnished in such a way that when you walk in, you feel like the family still lives here and has just gone out for the afternoon. It is a very interesting house in its construction, its design. The Victorian homes are often very dark. This one is very light because of the architectural plan. Each of the 4 big rooms on each floor has a double exposure, so rather than being dark, this house is very, very light and very bright. The ceilings that you mentioned are really the highlight of the house. They were painted by a German immigrant, Fritz Lieber, and his son, who came here from New York City and spent a year here painting these ceilings. And so they're really one of the highlights of the house. Mrs. Hobson was so proud of them that she never allowed a fire to be lit in this grate in this room for fear that the smoke or soot or ash would damage them. So they're very unusual and very beautiful, very fragile. The house has 4 major rooms on this floor, on the first floor, and 4 large rooms on the second floor. In fact, the floor plans are identical top and bottom. This house also has a basement area, which at the time was only used when the Hobsons lived here as a kitchen. But after we got a grant from Housing and Urban Development, we had to put in a meeting room, and thankfully had to put in 2 public bathrooms and modernize the downstairs level in the basement. So the house has about 6,000 square feet, and it was constructed it has 18-inch thick solid brick walls. The brick was fired here on the property. And then, of course, as an Italianate house, it has those architectural features, the arched windows and doorways, the large overhanging eaves, and then the cupola on top, which is always a star of any Italianate house.
You may wonder how the home got its name. It's quite simple, actually.
The house is called Riverview, and everybody says, where's the river? Well, the river still runs in the same place, however, it has fallen about 6 feet in the intervening years, and the foliage has grown up, and so you don't have that view of the river that they did then. But at that point in time, the river, Barren River, was the I-65 of Bowling Green, and from this house, from the view of this house, they could watch as the steamboats plied up and down the river and go down and get things at the old landing. So, you know, it had a lot of, you didn't have to worry about flooding. You had a beautiful view and good prevailing winds.
The city of Bowling Green owns the home and the property, while the nonprofit group Friends of Riverview own the furnishings. Southard says she and her staff try to accommodate anyone when wanting a tour of this historic home.
One of the things that everyone is always astounded at and very happy is that we give tours on demand. So you don't have to line up with a queue of people and wait till the hour or whatever. So, you know, they're able to come in, they have a docent, and generally it's just their party that's taking the tour. And so they love having that sort of up close and personal touch, and they can ask questions and anything that interests them. The docent can sort of cater their tour based on what you're interested in. We usually try to ascertain whether or not you have an interest in architecture or furniture or the Civil War or, you know, whatever your interest is, we can sort of tailor, that tour to suit you. So the visitors are always very appreciative and very complimentary of the tours and the docents and that one-on-one action that they get.
If you would like to tour Riverview at Hobson Grove, the address is 1100 West Main Avenue in Bowling Green. Reporting in Bowling Green, Barry Hyatt, NCTV.